Hi, my name is Elena Pell, and I am interviewing Marilyn Pelz. Today is Thursday, October the 14th, 2004. And Marilyn, I'd like to start by finding out a little bit about you. It's kind of silly, I know you well, but would you give me your full name?
Sure. Marilyn Ruth Burstein Pelz. Burstein being my maiden name, Pelz being my married name.
Okay. Do you know if your name has any significant meaning, or was it changed?
Actually, to be honest, I do not know. My grandparents came over, maybe I'm skipping ahead, but my grandparents came over in the late 1800s. My grandfather, one grandfather, my mother's father, and I know that my father's parents came over in the probably the 1890s or so, and I really don't know whether there's any significance. And unfortunately, now that my parents are both gone, there's really nobody to ask about that. My guess is it probably was changed.
Right. And so your parents are American born?
My parents are American. My dad was born in 1906. My grandparents were obviously here already. My mom was not born until 1915, but as I said, they came over in the 1890s, and my father, the first in his family, and both born here in the U.S.
Okay, and I know that you were not born in Milwaukee or in Wisconsin. Would you tell us when and where
Right.
you were born?
No, I was born in 1946, March of 1946, and I was born in Nourishell, New York, and that's where I lived until I went off to school in Madison, and only returned for visits, never returned to live there.
So you went to the University of Wisconsin, and that's where you met your
Harry, right.
Your husband, Harry. I've already asked the question about who settled here first. You don't know the years that your grandparents...
I just know that they came over in the 1890s. They were all from, I think, around the Kiev area, so the Ukraine. My guess is they came because probably why most Jews came then, because of pogroms and needed to get out of Russia.
Do you know how your grandparents made a living, and did they also settle in New York?
My grandparents, yes, they all settled in New York. My mother's father was actually owned a liquor store. He was actually a pretty successful businessman in a little town called Nyack, which actually, what's interesting, Nyack has now become one of the hubs of a lot of Orthodox Jews are living in this area. It was obviously not so when my mother was being brought up, but it has become that. And my grandfather was also, and I don't know if I'm saying correct, a sheket. And I do remember as a little girl him killing chickens, at their house. And my dad's and my grandmother, to be honest, I don't know if she worked for as long as I remember. She was always home and always cooking. My dad's father was in, I thinking the clothing business, I'm not sure. And the only thing I really know about that is he lost all of his money at the Depression. And my dad, who had been saving up money to go to, who had saved up money and I think was just going to law school or had just finished law school, had to give his parents the money he had. So that's kind of all I know about that. And my grandmother, once again, I just remember, her always being at home. So I don't know if they ever worked.
But your dad did get to law school.
My dad did get to law school and practiced, for many, many years as an attorney. But I know that was, something very impressionable in his life.
Okay. Describe how it was growing up in is it Long Island?
No, Westchester County.
Westchester County, New York.
We're north. We're north. The island is south. What I remember really as a little kid, I went to school with. It was very mixed. Jews, non-Jews, African Americans. So very mixed. The public school I went to. Then in New York, then I went on to elementary school, junior high school.
Mm-hmm.
We had a junior high school, and then we went on to high school. And things were pretty mixed. I was in a Jewish sorority in high school. So as I remember, I was mostly surrounded by Jewish people. So I probably did not experience maybe some anti-Semitism that kids who grew, who grew up in Milwaukee probably experienced a lot more. But not everybody was Jewish, but there was a very active Jewish life. And actually in high school, after school, our high school was kind of growing so fast that we had to have these split sessions. And one of the years I went, we used to get out at noon. We started like at 7 in the morning. And all of us would then go to this one temple, and it happened to be the one we belonged to. It was kind of like going to the JCC. And we used to watch American Bandstand and dance every afternoon, and that's what we did. So my life was, I would say, was probably pretty to very Jewish.
Did you belong to any other Jewish organizations as a teenager?
No, because actually the sorority, because it was a Jewish sorority, really took the place of like a BBYO. Mm-hmm. So that's where my affiliation was. But I was active at our temple, and my guess is I probably belonged to some clubs there and was active. My parents were very active at our temple.
What kind of synagogue was it?
It was Congregation Bethel and conservative. So very similar to where we belong now at Beth Israel.
And as you already said, going to synagogue was important to your family, participating in the life of the synagogue.
Right. My dad was an officer at the synagogue. My mom was always involved in the sisterhood, and actually, just a few years before she passed away, she was honored by the synagogue for her work through Hadassah, which in New York, the way they do it, it's kind of through the synagogue. She was involved in a lot of projects there. So that's how I grew up, and Bethel was very important to our family. Harry and I were married at the synagogue. No, we weren't. That's not true. We were married someplace else. But our rabbi, the rabbi from our synagogue, did marry us.
And what was your your Jewish educational background?
I went to Sunday school. I started Hebrew school. It conflicted with my dancing, and I stopped going to Hebrew school because dancing was very important to me.
So outside of the synagogue, in your home or your extended family, did you have extended family in your community?
Not in New Rochelle, but all of my mother's family and all of my father's family, everybody lived in New York. Okay. So we did get together for Jewish holidays, mostly Passover. But I do remember, because actually we had moved when I was a teenager, we moved closer to the synagogue, and I do remember I always walked with my dad. We always walked to synagogue. I never went to school on Sukkot or on Simchas Torah.
Really?
We took off. I never went to school on Shavuos, and I think a lot of that is because there were so many Jewish kids in the community that so many kids just didn't go to school then.
But the school didn't close.
School didn't close, and I don't remember whether it closed for Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. I'm sure now, I know now they're all closed. I just don't remember at that time whether we did. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't such a big deal to miss because everybody was not going on the Jewish holidays.
Right. You've already described how you celebrated your tradition, but were there any other ways outside of the holidays and participating in synagogue life and and your parents and other Jewish organizations?
I think that was really it.
And you were not aware of any anti-Semitism?
Very little. Very little. As I said, it's not that the school I went to was all Jewish, and probably if I were to look at the rolls back from that, probably there weren't that many Jews in my elementary school. As I went on into junior high and then high school, there were more because obviously then everybody from all the schools went to one school. There was only one high school in New Rochelle, so everybody, went there. But I really don't remember. I really don't remember very much anti-Semitism, and it's more when I got to college that I would hear other people talk about what they had experienced, growing up. Yeah. But no, I would say in New York, I just didn't see it very much.
What was your motivation for coming to the University of Wisconsin?
My brother.
Okay.
He went to Wisconsin. He was there the 4 years while I was still in high school. He loved it. His friends used to come over, when they were home for vacations, and I heard about it, and I just decided I wanted to go. And I didn't want to go where most of the kids I graduated went, and that was to Boston. Everybody went to BU, and I just didn't want to continue high school and college. So I decided to go to Madison, probably made the wisest choice of my life.
Well, that's where you met your husband?
Right.
Of how many years?
It's going to be 36. And actually, when I applied to Madison, and my mother, I remember very clearly saying to my father, we shouldn't let her go. She'll marry somebody from the Midwest and she won't come home. And I remember saying, I would never marry who's going to marry somebody from the Midwest? Such a New York answer. And it happened.
Yeah. And
So,
you married
Harry Pelz.
Harry Pelz, and we'll talk about the Pelz
Okay,
family
fine.
A little later, and your extended family now. Tell us about your involvement in agencies in Milwaukee's Jewish community since you've been here, which is since the early 60s?
Late 60s.
Late 60s.
We got married in 68, so
Okay. Okay.
I think actually I probably got involved. It seems like I've always been involved, so it's hard to pinpoint the date, but I know once I had children, I think they were old enough. I'm saying Jason, who's my oldest, I think when he must have started going to nursery school and to day camp that I got involved in the Jewish community. I think before then, though, I was a little bit involved in Federation. I remember being asked by somebody to make a donation at the time. I think I was asked to make an $85 donation, $65 or $85, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, that is so much money. We were, newly married, and it seemed like a fortune. And because it was a relative who asked me, I did it, and that really started a very long and, for me, a very meaningful relationship with the Federation. And then I got very involved in the center, and probably more so involved with the center at that time because of my kids. My greatest love at the center really has been the camps. I loved the camps. I chaired some of the camp programs. I was a vice president at the center. I spent hours upon hours at the center, and I loved it. And I would say that I miss being as involved there as I was. I also served on JFS for a few years. That was also a wonderful experience. But now that we're not here 12 months a year, I've cut back on a lot of that. I just don't. I just don't want to take up a space for somebody who's here more. But I loved all my experiences in the Jewish community. And in Federation, do you want me to talk about my Federation?
Certainly.
Okay. Well, got involved in Federation, and I don't know. I guess when you get involved, if you get involved, you really get involved. And eventually, I am a past president, as you are, of the women's division. I've sat on the board, and I'm still sitting on the board. It's kind of a lifelong thing, also, and been involved in political awareness. I'm involved in Lion of Judah. I'm just leaving in a few days for a conference in Washington. Looking forward to that, and I've very much enjoyed being a part of the women's division. And I really must say that through both the center and the Federation, I think most of my friends are really, that's where I met most of my friends who I just consider my dear friends now and lifelong friends.
I think early on your leadership qualities came to the forefront, and so not only did you rise to the top of these organizations, but you, in 1987, you were the recipient of the Anna Gulnett Young Leadership Award through the Women's Division of the Federation. Beyond this community, I know that you and Harry were initial supporters of the U.S. Holocaust Museum. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Well, Harry's family, the Pelz family, they are a survivor family. Harry was born in Europe, came over late 1947 when he was about 18 months old, and the Pelz family, besides Harry's immediate family, cousins and aunts and uncles, settled here in Milwaukee. So I married into a family that was very different than my family. Not that my family, there were also members of my parents' family that did lose their lives over in Europe, but not as, it was obviously not as immediate as what happened to the Pelz family. So I married into a very different dynamic. And over the years,
they were newcomers.
They were newcomers. They were the Greena.
They were the Greena.
They were the Greena, and they were just wonderful people. The whole family is just wonderful and so warm, and really just embraced me and my family when we married. So we got involved, and we were asked to go to a meeting actually at Jerry and Rosalie Kahn's house about the Holocaust Museum, and we just decided that this was something we needed to be involved in, out of respect for Harry's parents, and I think just letting everybody know that we need to make sure this never happens again. And I think that's one of the best things we've ever done is being involved, supporting the museum, and I think we've also gotten some other people involved, and that makes us very happy. We were lucky enough to, I don't know if you remember, we went on a trip to Europe with some people who were supporters of the Holocaust Museum, and there were a lot of survivors with us. And it's an experience I will never forget, to see Europe, pre-war Europe in their eyes, and then to see what happened to them. We went back to some of the camps where they had been incarcerated. I just think the museum is wonderful. When I have gone, I'm so proud to think that we were just a very little part, but that we were a part of getting this off the ground. And I've been back quite a few times, and now when I go, and I haven't been back in a while, I just love watching other people's response to what the museum shows them, and it's just very rewarding. And I think marrying into the Pelz family has really added a tremendous dimension to my life, because there's so much I didn't know about the Holocaust, and the respect that I have for my in-laws who lived through it and came here and started a new life, and really had a lot of hope for their life, and luckily had children. And my father-in-law was very successful and very philanthropic in this community, and that they were able to see their children marry and to have grandchildren, and hopefully, even though they lived through such horrors, to have a pretty fulfilling life.
And when I go to the Holocaust Museum, I'm very proud to see yours and Harry's name. Okay. Let's switch gears to Israel, because I know that you've been also major supporters of Israel. We've traveled there together a few times, and you've been on Federation missions. But talk a little bit about your involvement in Israel.
Well, the first time we went, and it had to be in the early 70s, and Harry has, actually I have some family there also, but Harry had quite a bit of family there, because his family that did not come to the U.S. after the war actually ended up going to Israel. And so the first time we went, it was not on a mission, it was just the two of us, and spending time with the Pelz extended family in Israel. And once you go to Israel, you get the bug, and you want to go back. And I think my next time I went through Acharai, which it was probably quite a few years after that. And maybe Harry and I had gone back before then, but I don't remember. But I know that was my first mission, and saw a very different side to Israel. And after that, I know we went back pretty soon after, with actually relatives of yours. And I think we called it the other side of Israel, besides just seeing what everybody goes to see, because we had all been there a few times, seeing a lot of, I shouldn't say seeing, but doing a lot of things that were maybe more fun and more the fabric of Israel than just going to the wall and Mia Sharim and things like that. And I've gone back many times. We were with you when we went back after, if you remember, the Gulf War. We all felt this need to go and to say to the people of Israel that we support you. I think about 5 years later, one of the community missions, I did co-chair that, and that was just a phenomenal experience. If you remember, we had 3 different tracks, if I'm correct,
Right.
and we had a few hundred people who went with us, and to be part of a community that cares that much about Israel is wonderful, and then to be asked to kind of spearhead that was really an honor, and it was great. Israel's, very important to me.
Well, you forgot one very important mitzvah that you celebrated.
Yes, oh my gosh. How could I forget that? That's right. I was thinking more from a community
Right,
level.
right.
Our daughter decided, Mara, and it's going to be 17 years, actually just past 16 years this past summer, decided that she wanted to be bat mitzvahed in Israel. Oh, I'm sorry, Mara. And our family, you and your husband and some of our other friends, and did your children, no, your kids, were your kids with us? No,
No,
but
I
I
don't
think
think
some
so.
of, joined Steve, the camera will have to forgive me that aside, joined us. And my parents came from New York, my brother came with one of his daughters, and my mother-in-law came. My father-in-law wasn't able to. And I guess out of all the trips to Israel, that really was the highlight when you don't think about the community trips. It was great. Actually, Mara was bat mitzvahed in a conservative temple there. And then we had a wonderful outdoor party that night. And I can't remember the name of it now. Mishkanat Shananim, right near Moses Montefiore, where the windmills were, not far from the King David.
Right.
And we had our Israeli family there, and it was wonderful. And then we toured for, I think about 2 weeks we all stayed, and we went on a bus, and it was wonderful. And I know we all talk about, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could take our families again? And our families have obviously enlarged tremendously with all of us, with our grandchildren. And actually, I think now that you brought it up, I think that would be just a wonderful, wonderful thing to do, to show our kids, not so much our kids, I think they've all been, and they've all been a few times, but to show our grandchildren Israel. And hopefully we'll be able to do it.
And that's one thing that we miss. We're talking about your children and grandchildren. Tell us your children's names and ages and your grandchildren.
Okay. Well, my son Jason will be turning 35 soon. His wife is Susan. They have 3 children, 2 boys, Jacob and Leo, and they just recently had a little girl, Ava. My son David, who is turning 32, it's hard to remember, and his wife Allison, and they have a little boy Benjamin, a little girl Emma, and they are expecting another baby in December. And then there's my daughter Mara, who is married, and I'm going to say to Gary Lappin because the Lappins are a known member of this Jewish community, so it's kind of nice. And they have a little girl Anna, and then there's my youngest son Danny, who and his wife Shara, and they are both attorneys living in Florida, and they don't have any kids yet, but that eventually will come to pass.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, let's talk about this community in the present time. I mean, how do you view the present nature of Milwaukee's Jewish community, and what do you see for the future?
Well, I have not been as active, so I don't have my pulse on the community the way I think I used to. But I think what is happening in the community actually I think is quite exciting. Obviously with the expansion at the center, in Whitefish Bay, the campus, thank you. Also the building, the home, building in Mequon. Also in Mequon, the Congregation Agudas Achim Chabad, they're building this whole family learning Jewish center also. The temples are all beginning to mount campaigns. I think there's a lot going on. I think it's all very positive. I can't speak for the young people. I don't know how active they are, but I do know when I have been going to certain things, and I know there is a group of young people that seem to be active and committed, and that's that's always nice to see, and I guess when I see that, I always think of myself probably 20 years ago. And it's nice to see that 20 years later, somebody else is kind of picking up the slack, and somebody is caring, and somebody is doing it. The only thing I guess I worry about this community, I know there are lots of people who are, for various reasons are no longer in the community. A lot of our really, the mentors I would talk about have unfortunately passed away. That doesn't mean that there aren't other, new mentors that maybe we don't know about, and, maybe even there are people who look to us as those mentors now. People are moving, people have second homes, it's changing a little bit. So I guess it really does very much depend on this new generation coming up. But I think Milwaukee has a strong sense of, the Jewish community has a strong sense of who they are, and I'm pretty optimistic that
For the future?
Yeah, I'm I'm optimistic that we will always have a very strong presence in Milwaukee. And actually, I think another positive thing, I think a lot of people are involved now in the general community, and I think that's always good when the general community sees that Jewish people have interests that go way beyond just being Jewish. Harry and I are involved over at Children's Hospital, and I know when we started our involvement there, they were very happy to have another Jewish person, there, and now you see there are many Jewish people on the board there, and some of the organizations that are auxiliaries of Children's Hospital, and so I think that's a positive for the Jewish community that we're seeing in a lot of places.
It's nice to hear that you're so optimistic. You're a little young for this question, but
no, I'm not a war vet.
Is there any lesson in life that you've learned that has carried you through to this point?
Thank you for saying I'm a little bit young for this. I guess the most important thing, I think, is just, to be yourself. And I think if you are who you are, that's the way to go through life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What are you most proud of?
Probably my family, my husband,
Of course.
my children, my grandchildren. I think I'm very proud of the life that Harry and I have made together. And
Don't cry again.
And I think what's wonderful, I think for all of us, grandparents, when you see your children become parents, and especially when you think they're doing the right thing, it's very rewarding, to see that next generation. Mm-hmm. And I'm most proud of my family.
Good. Do you have any regrets?
Well, we probably all have regrets. The one thing I really regret, I'm very sorry that I never went to law school. My dad, as I said, was a lawyer. My brother's a lawyer. My dad's whole family, my aunt, one of my aunts was a lawyer, and really in those days, this is many years ago, there weren't that many women lawyers. And I think my dad always thought that I would go to law school, always thought I should be a lawyer, and I'm kind of sorry that I never did that. But
it's not too late.
Yeah, I think it is. Regrets. Probably there are. I'm sure
regrets. There are a few.
There are a few. Sure, I've done some things in my life I shouldn't have done, but I've been very blessed, and life has been good.
Good. What is the happiest moment of your life, or the happiest moments?
I would think probably getting married and then the birth of my children.
Sure.
I don't think there's anything that could, ever
Sure.
surpass that. And of course, the birth of your grandchildren's a whole other dimension. But when it's your kids, you're there, and
Right.
it's very. I think that's the most special thing.
I mean, is there anything in particular that was the saddest? Or?
Actually, I think, and now I am going to cry. I think when my mom passed away.
Okay.
My dad had died about 9 years before, and I guess because my mom was still alive,
Drink your water.
even though my mom lived in New York and I was here, when you only have one parent left, as you know, you develop such a close relationship with that surviving parent. And I just thought my mom was going to live forever. And I think that's been the saddest moment.
I'm sure she's listening to you. We're gonna get some levity here.
Okay.
Is there something about yourself that no one knows that they might find interesting? I mean, I've known you many, many years. I did not know that you regretted not going to law school. So
that may be it.
Anything else you can say on camera?
I'm pretty much an open book, so I don't know that I don't know that there's anything that you wouldn't know about me.
Okay. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that maybe we didn't get to? You'll think of it tonight.
I'm sure I'll think of it tonight.
Yeah.
No, I guess when actually I had gotten the letter about the Historical Society doing these interviews, and I had really wanted to call because I not that I wanted to be interviewed, I wanted to do something, to help this out, the process, and I just never got to the phone call. And then Kathy Bernstein called me, and I said, I was going to call. She says, well, we want to interview you. And I thought, gee, that's really nice. I mean, it makes you feel good that obviously somebody thinks that you have been an important part, of this Jewish community. And I think it's especially nice when, I wasn't born here, so I didn't grow up here, and that I came in and I, hopefully made a difference in whatever, small way. But I'm sure it's been said by a million people that what I have gotten from this community is much more than I ever gave. So I think I've been really around the receiving end. And unless there's something else, I think that's probably it.
Last question, and you probably have answered it. How would you like to be remembered 90 years from now?
Hopefully. That's hard. I think, to be remembered as somebody who really cared and who worked hard in the community, not, just didn't give lip service to it, but did work hard in the community, and, that perhaps I made a little dent, that, myself along with all the other people I worked with, that we made a dent. We made this Jewish community better, for our kids and our grandchildren. I guess you couldn't ask for more than that.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Thank you, Elaine.
Wonderful. Okay.